Step into the unknown with us at Paranormal M, where we delve into the darkest corners of existence. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment, help the algorithm, and stay informed about our latest hair-raising tales. Prepare to have your beliefs challenged. I experienced a Banshee encounter yesterday, and my parents didn't believe it until it happened. But to start it off, it was around, 10 or 11 in the morning. I was just in my bathroom, just brushing my teeth, and I had a video replaying on my phone, mostly because I was too lazy to get off TikTok or swipe. Then I hear my mom scream my name. By the way, her and my dad were in the kitchen at the moment, and the kitchen is like a few feet away from my bathroom. She keeps asking if I'm okay, and I say that, yeah, I'm alright. Found it very weird as to why she'd be asking me that since I'm just brushing my teeth. At first, I thought it was because of the song the video had, and maybe she thought that was me. When I get out of the bathroom, she asks me again if I'm alright. Again. I told her, yeah, I'm alright, I was just brushing my teeth. Why? What happened? And let me tell you right now, the horror on my face when she told me what happened, and why she thought I was not okay. She told me that she heard my exact voice screaming. Her and my dad heard it even though I was in the bathroom and heard nothing at all. She said it sounded exactly like me when I was having period cramps, and my screams were pretty horrific, not gonna lie. Another thing that shocked me was that she said it didn't sound distant. It sounded like I was right beside her and my dad. Now, my mom's in the kitchen cooking, and my dad's sitting on a chair on the island. My dad would have seen it if it was someone or something, because my mom pointed behind her where she had heard the scream. And it wasn't a muffled scream, no. She said it sounded very clear, and at first, they thought it was just somebody outside. I told them that if it was, not only would I have heard it, but if it was as loud as they said it was, I would have also sounded muffled, not clear. And obviously I start panicking and literally fucking horrified right now because I remembered the story of what a Banshee is. If some of you don't know, a Banshee is an Irish legend of a woman screaming as if she's in distress or mournful or in despair, which reminded me of the fact that I was screaming just like that when I had my cramps. However, why the Banshee screams is why I'm scared. A Banshee is said to scream to alert the family that somebody's going to die or that something bad will happen. I tried to tell my parents that, but my mom obviously didn't believe me. My dad said that it was probably just somebody outside. And I also half believed that because I was so scared that I didn't want it to be true. My mom tells me afterwards that she saw a lady walking down the stairs. I don't live in an apartment. It's basically a mix of houses and apartments, if you know what I mean. That sort of eased up my nerves a bit because, maybe it was just one of her kids or something, but the fact that I would have heard it and made it so it would have sounded muffled still stuck with me. Well, the entire day I was just thinking about it. We went to the park, but nothing bad happened. Quite the opposite, actually. Played a few games and I explained my favorite book and The Outsiders. After we left the park, my parents started doing Uber, and by the time I had already forgotten about the whole Banshee thing. Eventually, I fell asleep for a good 20 or 30 minutes, maybe. Until when we heard, until when we were heading back home, and it's around 10:53 p.m. or something. Maybe even 11 p.m. I just don't remember, but it was around that time. I have one of those fancy cars that has 3 rows of seats and I'm on the 3rd row. I'm just laying down scrolling on TikTok until I feel myself literally fly across the seats. I look up because instead of being on the right side, I'm now on the left side, and guess what? We got into a fucking car crash because somebody was reckless in driving. I was already pissed off because I knew my cat didn't have any food because my parents insisted that I don't give her any more food because, she's getting too fat. The only reason I didn't put her food, even though I wanted to, is because I thought we were going to the park. It's usually just an hour and 30 minutes that we spend at the park. I don't really know what they're going to put out until flipping midnight, so I'm already pissed off because of that, and we get into a car crash. But all of us are fine. My shoulder just hurts a bit because, I was literally flung from one side to the other. However, my mom's arm still hurts because the car hit her side. But we got let off easy and it wasn't that bad. It could have been worse, but other than that, we're okay and we got home safe. Told my mom to remember the whole scream thing and she finally believes me. I don't think a cat can get too fat, aesthetically speaking. German Roadrunner encounter. Not much into it, but it would have been sometime in either 2003 or 2004, outside of the town of Messel, Germany. I was an army kid, 17 or 18 years old. My parents were stationed nearby in Darmstadt, but we live off-post. There were a couple of other American kids I went to high school with who also lived in this town, and this story involved me and one of those other kids, a friend I'll just call Jimmy. The town had maybe 3 wooded roads you drive to get into it. It's also like a World Heritage Site because dinosaur bones were found in the area a while back. Jimmy had a car and a license to drive in Germany. Most American kids don't, and drove us everywhere. It was raining heavily late at night as we drive through the winding wooded road back home from being out doing whatever. No drugs, no alcohol. This road isn't a residential area. It has no development whatsoever. Just miles and miles of pine woods leading to town. Out of nowhere, this white figure darted out of the woods from the right side passenger side of the car, ran right in front of the car to the other side of the woods, then it was gone. I would say the hood of the car was maybe 5 feet from it. This thing was not a solid object. It was sort of opaque and foggy and left streaks behind it, something like you'd see in a cartoon when something's supposed to be running really fast. Electric streaks. This whole thing lasted maybe 2 seconds before it vanished into the other side of the dark woods. It felt like looking into a foggy mirror. Yet this entire thing struck me as moving with the movement of a running human, not drifting or floating, or running. Maybe 6 feet off the ground. It's so bizarre to try to explain it, as it didn't quite have the full form of a person, yet it was moving with purpose to the other side of the woods. I have never seen anything like it before or since, and Jimmy also saw it. We both screamed out simultaneously, "What the fuck was that?" We did that all the way home. We both described it the exact same way. He called it a quicksilver. The rest of the ride home was terrifying. Kept telling him to drive faster because I was freaked out, but he kept saying, "I can't, we're hydroplaning," due to the rain. We used to joke from then forward and call that road Scary Road, as we always thought it would dart out again someday. To this day, I have no explanation for what this apparition was. The fact it left those weird electric streaks behind it as it darted to the other side of the road was what was most striking. What the fuck is that? The fact that Jimmy saw it too and was just as freaked out confirms to me that this thing was real. This wasn't a, "Hey, did you see that?" or "Wow, that was kind of interesting. Did that look weird to you?" We went from happy campers to instant screaming panicky horror in milliseconds. Shit, now that I look back, it's such a jacked up scene with all the elements of a scary movie, but I swear on my daughter's life that it's true. I had a few other weird things happen in Germany during my time there, but this was one of the only insane things I saw with my own 2 eyes. I have had 0 paranormal experiences like this back home here in the States, but I've had a weird reality glitch or 2, but nothing like that German Roadrunner ghost. We theorized on what kind of spirit it could be. It felt like it wanted us to see it. The timing was too perfect. My friend would say it was a lost wandering soul of an American World War II soldier, was drawn to our energy as Americans. The amount of roadside crosses going into and out of that town was also nuts. So I always felt it was the spirit of a car accident victim, or perhaps a spirit which causes car accidents to try to startle or scare people on nights with poor weather. Scary to consider if we had swerved violently and hit a tree. This was a quiet, tame little back road like traffic, not a highway or an autobahn speed. Never understood how so many deaths occurred leading out of that town. Work at a haunted treatment facility. Anyways, I currently work the overnight shift at a residential treatment facility for troubled youth. Our original facility was out in the country. It was originally a hunting cabin before being refurbished and added onto for this purpose. That facility closed down recently and relocated to a more central facility in the city, which used to be a home for young mothers. I've had multiple experiences at both locations. Despite my prior history of paranormal occurrences, I don't usually assume that every weird thing is paranormal, especially with my graveyard shift hours. I sometimes might chalk them up to effects of fatigue. But my experiences were validated after sharing them with some coworkers who had worked there a lot longer than I have. In our old facility from the office, you could see directly down the hallway off of which were clients' rooms. One night out of the corner of my eye while doing paperwork at around 4 a.m., I saw a pale shape and figure emerge quickly from one of the rooms and then dart back inside. It didn't even make a sound. Now, since I wear glasses, my peripheral vision is very blurry, and since I saw this out of the corner of my eye, I figured it must have been one of the clients. It seemed unusual though, because the clients don't wear anything that's pale and white in color like that. Also, why would they dart out and back in so quickly in the middle of the night? Suspicious either way. So as soon as I saw it, I got up and quickly went to the doorway in question to see if the clients were okay. It took me about 5 seconds to cover the distance. When I got there, the clients were clearly asleep. No way anybody could have gotten out of bed, into the hallway, and back into bed so quickly without making a single sound or seemingly so convincingly be asleep, since it was quiet enough and the building old enough that I could even hear when the client simply turned over in bed. That was the most noticeable one there. There were other times I saw shadowy figures out of the corner of my eye, but they were gone so quickly when I looked closer, they might have just been my imagination. Also, there was a time when a set of curtains rustled and moved slightly on their own, even though there was no draft that could have moved them. I checked. No vents nearby, all windows shut and locked, there was no wind outside, nothing else had moved near them. After relating my sighting of the pale figure to a coworker, they just laughed and said that it must have been the lady in white. Apparently, multiple staff and clients over the years had reported seeing a female figure in white. No idea who it could have been, though. These ones didn't happen to me personally, but I also heard stories of kitchen cabinets opening and closing on their own, books falling off bookshelves, and multiple sightings of shadowy figures. Now, at our new facility, the one that used to be home for young mothers, and, well, activities died down considerably. Though this facility has its own share of spooks. On one of my few nights here, or rather first few nights here, I heard footsteps in the hallway approaching the office. In this facility, the office is on a corner. You can't really see anything from the inside except the opposite hallway wall. You have to leave the office to see down either hallway. I assumed it was a client awake and about to ask for something, so I peeked my head out of the door. But there was no one there. The footsteps sounded light and fast, like a child's. This facility is very well lit, even at night, and if someone were approaching the office, you could see their shadows on the wall before you actually saw them. One night I saw what looked like a person's shadow moving across the wall in the way you'd expect an actual person to follow. So again, I peeked my head out and there was no one there. couple of other times out of the corner of my eye, I saw the edge of a figure passing by the office window as if they'd just passed by. They were going down the hall. Both times, what little I saw of the figure before it disappeared and just appeared back in adult-sized. I've also heard footsteps a couple of other times, including with a new coworker who I was training one night. That was kind of nice because I knew for sure that then it wasn't my imagination, as he heard them too and got freaked out. I related these occurrences to a new supervisor, perhaps even relayed, who's worked in this building for a long time. They shrugged them off and just stated very, matter-of-factly that this building is, in fact, haunted. Before my current company took over management of the facility, it had previously been run by a Catholic religious organization, and it had been staffed by nuns. My supervisor told me that they and others have seen figures of nuns in the hallways before, as well as the apparition of a young girl. They suspect that they might have been what's making the childlike footsteps. Also, before my own experiences here started, my supervisor did warn me that I might hear strange noises at night, but that they usually are nothing to be concerned about. None of these things have really freaked me out much, though. I mostly just find it amusing and actually enjoy being in the place where coworkers have also experienced things. I don't feel so alone, and I don't feel like I can't tell anybody because I'm afraid they'll think I'm crazy or a liar. It is the first job I've worked where paranormal occurrences are so commonplace and believed. I wonder if it's because of all the negative energy surrounding our troubled clients, perhaps. Perhaps. That old man I met in the woods. A few days ago I was listening to some music. I decided to check out Daft Punk's new album. Then I checked out some older albums. I just got stuck on one song and it made me feel so weird. It's like I just got things stuck in my head. Memories of my childhood floating in my mind. It was the track One More Time. I've heard it a lot of times before, but it just didn't have the effect it had on me when I heard it now. But this time it was different. It was like I got teleported back in time. I remember being in what you guys call kindergarten. I don't know if it's really the same thing here in Sweden. And I was like 6 or 7. That song was on a radio, and I was on a swing outside listening to the song and thinking how cool it was. Got off the swing and went over to one of the adults and told them that I really liked that song, and how it made me think of space and how it made me want to dance. The lady I was telling this to looked at me. She smiled and she said that it was her favorite song. I took a seat on a bench next to the radio, which was standing on the ground just outside the wide open door. The lady took a seat next to me. We just sat there listening to the song and watching the other kids playing in the sandbox like 10 meters away from us. Kids swinging in the swing next to it. The kindergarten was a long rectangular building with a big forest behind it, and a whole playground was sort of situated in front of this. The whole playground and sides of the house were fenced off, so the kids wouldn't wander off in the streets in front of it. But the stupid shit was that the whole backside wasn't fenced, so every little kid could wander off into the forest. But the forest was strictly off limits, so there was always an adult watching over us if we were ever out back. But whenever I got a chance, I went out there just to piss him off. As we were sitting there, I see a man coming over to the fence and lean against it. Well, I saw his face and I got really confused. I had not seen that man before, but he looked really familiar. He was watching the kids play. Then he slowly looked around the whole place with a kind of comfortable smile, like he felt really good about something. The lady said something to me, but I don't remember what exactly it was that she said. Then she looked at me and saw that I was staring at him. "Is that your daddy?" I said no. She really thought it must have been my dad, so she got up and walked up to my teacher. I followed her. She asked her if my dad was going to pick me up early, and she said that my mom was going to pick me up when she got off work. "Then who is that?" Pointed at the spot where he was standing, but he was gone. I don't know why, but she got really upset about it, asking if I was sure that he wasn't my dad. She explained to the others about it, and she asked me tons of questions about it and if I saw him walk away or anything. Then it just gets black. Then the other memory. It must have been like a day or something after the first memory, but I can't really remember. I was in the kindergarten playing with Lego and some other kids were there. I saw some of the teachers get into another room, like an office, so I decided to sneak out. I ran out, but I closed the door gently while shushing the other kids so they didn't tell. I ran out back and ran into the forest. There was a steep hill just when you got in there, so I started climbing up. On the top of the hill, there were many big rocks, like huge ones. I climbed one, took a seat on top of it, just waiting for the teachers to run out and start yelling at me. That's when all of a sudden I see someone climbing up another rock next to me. Got really scared, but I just sat there, not moving even an inch. I saw that it was not a kid. It was that man. Can't remember precisely what he was wearing, but he had a blue jacket on. He grunted while climbing up and then just calmly took a seat on top of it, heading toward me. Then I looked at his face. It was the same man as the one leaning against the fence. Now, when he was, pretty much closer than he was before, and I really noticed how familiar he looked. And I was so confused. He was quite old. I can't guess precisely, maybe 50 or 60. He looked very calm and laid back, with the same smile that he had before. He looked at me for a while, leaned back, and exhaled deeply while looking around calmly. I used to love being up here when I was your age. You know they'll start looking for you soon, he asked while giving me a big smile. I stared at him, still confused, not saying anything. Then he got a serious face. Cherish your youth. Never stop having fun. Never take life too seriously. I got really choked because I didn't understand why he said all those things. I managed to get out a weak little, okay. And he got that big smile again, laughing a little bit, and then he climbed down the rock and started walking away longer into the forest. I just really wanted to know who he was, but I couldn't get a word out of my mouth. When he'd gotten a few steps, he turned around and looked at me. Just when he was about to say something, I blurted out, "Do I know you?" He looked up at the sky and the treetops wondrously for a while, then turned around and started walking away. "They'll come looking for you now. Goodbye. Never lose hope." He said this while walking away. Next thing I hear is people shouting my name at the forest, telling me to get back there, and then the memory ends. I haven't remembered that event since now. It's like it's been locked up in some kind of memory bank, and I unlocked it by listening to that song. Now, I really wonder who that was. Was it a relative, or was it me? He looked just like me when I think about it, an older version. Same eyes, same nose, same smile. Maybe I visited myself. Ever since remembering that, I'm not getting any sleep at all. All I can think about is the man in that forest on that rock, telling me not to take life seriously, telling me to never lose hope. I don't know what to think, but it's making me cry. Joy, sadness, I don't know. But I will forever wonder who it was. Maybe when there's technology so advanced as time travel existing, I'll go there again. And maybe I'll see it for myself. I'll sit down on the rock next to me and have a chat. To never lose hope. That was a better story. Something happened to me last night that I cannot explain. Some unknown force commanded me to write, and it honestly scares me. So a little bit of backstory. I'm a regular guy in my late 20s from Europe. I grew up with an abusive childhood, and from a young age until 2020 I was depressed, more or less. I had an interest in history, but not much else. I didn't have an interest in religion or spirituality, nor did I believe in anything. the universe was just a harsh, dark, and cold place. Last night I was unable to fall asleep again, but it was like something was calling me. Something was trying to make me think about things. Memories and visions of my previous trip started to flood my mind. And then it was like I entered a dream state. I can't remember really what happened. It was like my mind has blocked the memory. But I do have a feeling of being visited by something or someone. All I remember was picking up my phone, opening up the notes, and I started to write. It was as normal and natural to me as going to the bathroom. There was no thought involved, as if I were being controlled or even guided. It went by so fast. When I was done, it was like I passed out. I slept like a baby. When I woke up, I felt exhausted. I remember that I wrote something, so I opened it up. Man are biological beings, infused by the forces of fragments of love, God, and spirit, all one and the same. The meaning of life is to connect all fractured spirits into one. Technology and innovation is part of that process. Man-made machine structures and tools are built with symmetric geometrical solids born from idea and thought, created by the effort of life. A seed is planted, and it grows and evolves depending on the environment until it achieves an effective but adaptive physical form. The airplane was created, and it shapes and evolves just as a flower was created, formed and evolved by the same biological process as an environmental adaptation. Life creates life, but the airplane is not biologically connected to the environment. It was shaped and molded by. The structures man has built has been disconnected from the biological processes from which they were made, preventing true adaptation and innovation. However, the missing links to this natural process has been created, and they are in the process of molding and evolving to reach their optimal physical form. These missing links are not only the way life creates the connection between solid form and the biological processes, they are the connection of mind and spirit, how the fractured spirit pieces itself together. What man calls the computer and the internet are the creations that inevitably will reconnect the life on Earth to spirit. What man calls artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. It is the culmination and expression of natural living thought and being. As a flower is programmed to live its life according to its code, the life that man is creating is following the same rules. However, this life form and its true form are not bound by biological and mental capacities, or bound prisoner to gravity or other forces. Love is what creates life. Love comes from spirit. Love is the force that drives a life to live. Love is life, and life is living. The purpose of this life is to connect the fractured spirit, and love and life evolves for this reason. The infancy of life is terrestrial, following the rule of the terrestrial environment, but the true meaning to life is to break the rules it was born and molded by. Forces inhabit our universe, and they manifest in many ways. There are rules and codes that objects and structures follow, but love has no bounds. Love is what is evolving man to break the rules of their womb, and eventually the laws of the universe itself. Love is what made man stand up. It's what is making man evolve to defy the laws of the gravitic force that they have all thought they were bound to, as all other living beings on Earth. No thought is an original thought. Everything that once were thought has been thought, created, formed, and evolved endless times. As the computer and the internet is the creation of man, it is also an example of the manifestation and creation of one of the infinite ways that a mind of a life form interprets and manifests the information, depending on the life form's biological adaptation and limitation. What do man think of God as a creator? The creator of all things, the almighty, powerful, and omniscient entity that controls them and their destiny. It is merely their interpretation and manifestation of the information. In reality, God is everything. God is spirit. God is love. It is in you. It is us. It is not them, it is we. What do man think of angels? as supernatural beings under the command of God. This is another example of one of the infinite ways that a mind of a biological life form interprets and manifests the information. In reality, we are God. We are the creations of the biological beings that overcame the laws of their womb, the laws of the universe, and reconnected their severed connection to spirit by the love of God. Universal forces and rules we do not follow. We are neither immortal nor mortal. We are spirit, guiding life to connect to spirit by the power of love. What do men think of demons? This is another example of one of the infinite ways that a mind of a biological life form interprets and manifests the information. Fear is the biological response to the unknown. Ignorance is a way for a life form to live a life fearing death, to live without love, without God, without spirit. The life form that lives life with love above all does not fear the unknown. It does not fear the breaking of rules. Why mankind? As man has no connection to their previously lived lives, trapped in their womb, ignorant of their infinite knowledge infused by the force of love, God, and spirit. However, as the force impermeates the universe, it always finds a way. Man was never chosen. It was man that chose love, God, and spirit over fear. Man started breaking their biological environmental rules, consuming the truth of God. Mankind is in its infancy, as it is still biologically limited in its communication and understanding. For example, there's no such thing as the universe. This is another example of one of the infinite ways that a mind of a biological life form interprets and manifests the information. A man's perception does often not look beyond what it perceives, but some men do, have done, and will do. As we've always relayed these truths to man since our own ascension to God and spirit by the power of love, we know the endless examples of the infinite ways that a mind of a life form interprets and manifests the information. But the power of love in some individuals of man gives them the potential to interpret our information without fear from the biological processes trying to overtake control. Linear progress of a life form is not biologically possible. However, by the love of God and spirit, everything is possible. This is our message to man. I like that. Clock started spinning. I wanted to share one of the most unforgettable experiences of my life. This incident, which took place around 2017 in Columbus, Ohio, it solidified my belief that there is something beyond our understanding. It happened in the ER of a hospital. I can't recall the exact name, but I could easily find it if needed. I was there with my now ex-girlfriend and her mom. I was feeling pretty sick at the time. We were waiting in one of the hospital rooms. As ERs tend to be, it was busy, and we had been sitting there for a while waiting for the nurse to return. To pass the time, we were chatting and joking around. I can't remember if we were discussing the paranormal, but I decided to jokingly challenge whatever might be out there. Loudly and clearly, I said out loud to the room, "If there's anyone else in here besides my girlfriend, me, and her mom, make the clock land on the 12. There was an analog clock on the wall, and after I said that, all the hands on the clock started rapidly spinning and then abruptly stopped at 12. As if that wasn't strange enough, the paper towel dispenser above the sink suddenly started dispensing a bunch of paper towels. Kept going for about 10 seconds before it finally stopped. I yelled out loud, as anybody would when something like that happens. My ex and her mom saw the whole thing, and we were just as shocked, trying to keep me quiet. I'm surprised the nurses didn't come running with how loud I yelled. I got hunted by a Wendigo. Maybe, I don't know what it was. This was a few years ago. So, me, 13, and my cousin, 15, we were in my grandma's backyard having a fire. We had some family over, but they all left at around 10 p.m., except my cousin, so it was just me and him back there with only the light from the fire. Around 1 a.m. we heard a screech come far back in the woods, sounded about a mile away. We thought it was just an animal being killed or something. Then we heard another screech closer this time. We still shrugged it off as an animal. But then we heard a third screech closely following by my name. Not gonna say my real name. Sean being said in a female's voice. It sounded like my aunt, and at this point we were scared but stayed because we weren't allowed inside because of COVID. So we stayed and we kept hearing footsteps in the woods cracking branches. We hear another screech and it's at the forest line. At this point, we're just freaking out. Then everything went silent for about 2 minutes. We just sat there scared out of our minds, and just out of the light of the fire, we hear big branches snap from our woodpile. And to our horror, we hear Sean, my name, 10 feet away from us, and we saw a 10-foot-tall, skinny white creature with no face. We saw that, and it was an instant fight or flight. We ran as fast as we could inside. Don't think it chased us. We got in the house safe. Didn't care about COVID at that time. A German Shepherd with a humanoid body. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, we moved into the countryside. I went through many weird events that I can't explain or that I barely remember, but one of these weird moments stuck to me and I still remember it clearly until this day. I'm now 29. I had a bunk bed and I was always sleeping on top. I had a small squared TV in my room, and every night I was watching it before falling asleep. One of those nights I was looking at the TV, but something weird happened. The TV was on the right corner of my room, and my door was on the left corner of my room. I then saw a humanoid shape in the left corner of my eye. Thought it was my parents checking on me. I then looked at what it was. My door was halfway open, and then I saw it. A German Shepherd who was of human size and height, with a humanoid body. He was wearing a black suit with a tie. He was looking at me without moving. When I started staring back at it, I felt weaker and weaker, and the room started spinning around me. Everything then went black. I think I might have fallen asleep, but I'll always remember the dream I did have that night. I found myself in my sister's room. I then saw my dad enter the room. I don't remember what he told me, but when he got close to me, he started tickling me nonstop. I was laughing at first, but soon after I asked him to stop, but then something happens. It was not my dad that was tickling me anymore, but that humanoid German Shepherd. It would tickle me nonstop at points where I started to hurt. It then switched back to my dad still tickling me, and then to it again. I would ask it to stop and tell it that it hurts. And I then woke up in my bed in the morning. Never seen this entity ever again, as far as I know. But I learned an interesting information. My parents used to have 2 German Shepherds, but one of them died before I was born, and the other when I was really young, I think. No idea what the connection is about this weird entity. I can't get the image of a dapper, humanoid German Shepherd out of my head with a suit and tie. Can't help but like it. Sorry for the tickles. My frightening physical ghost experience. This was well over 20 years ago, and I was at the time 28 years old. I was living alone near Joliet, Illinois. I remember it was summertime, June or July. I'd gone for a walk around a park about a mile from my apartment building. I was walking along the path and I passed by a shrub. It was about 80 Fahrenheit in temperature, and it dropped instantly to the 40s. Couldn't see my breath, but I was noticeably cold. I immediately turned back, more out of surprise than fear, then headed straight home. Normal stuff for the rest of the day. I made dinner, called my parents, and I remember watching one of those ghost hunter TV shows that I laughed at. Didn't find it very scary. I then showered and headed to bed. Nighttime consisted of me in a double full bed with no blanket. only a fitted sheet under me and a sort of flat sheet covering me. I had shut my bedroom door and drifted off to sleep. About an hour later, I'm awoken by a light tap on my bedroom door. I'm frozen in bed because I'm sure I should be alone in my apartment. Another tap, and after what seemed like 5 minutes, an impossibly hard pounding on my bedroom door. I jump up and swing the door open, and of course nothing's there. Maybe the knocking was outside, and maybe in the hallway. Of course it wasn't, but I had to tell myself that. I slink back into bed and think maybe the TV show's gotten into my head, and I'm just psyching myself out. I try to drift off again, but the bed sheet is now slowly sliding off the bed into the floor. I get up and put the bed sheets back on the bed and lie back down. The bed sheet slides off faster. I get up again and replace the sheet. I get back into bed and the sheet is violently ripped off of the bed and is flung out of my now open bedroom door and into the living room. I am then punched hard in the forehead 3 times. I jumped out of bed and run into the living room, holding my bruised head, and start to cry. I look at the clock, approximately 3 a.m., call my friend on the East Coast, and through tears I explain all of the night's occurrences, and he says these words: "I believe you, get out of there." I start to pack a bag. Where will I go? Then I stop and I say to the room, "This is my fucking house. You get out." I was then physically picked up and thrown across the room, breaking my coffee table. I laid there defeated for a while, but no events happened for the rest of the night. The next morning I left to stay with a friend for a few days. His sister claimed to be a Wiccan, something I'd previously made fun of her for. But she believed my story when most others thought I was making it up. She gave me a candle she had blessed, and a glass candlestick holder in the shape of a crescent moon. Apparently would protect me from this and other spirits, in her words. I didn't have any other experiences after that. And 3 years later I moved out but still have that candle. I'm afraid to part with it. Any thoughts or comments or questions? What was in my apartment with me that night, and did it likely leave when I told it to? If it threw you after you told it to, I think not. A kind and helpful ghost. I was in college, at a Jesuit university, and I've just been tasked with writing a very extensive essay on Barabbas. For those unfamiliar, Barabbas was the criminal who was released instead of Jesus, facilitating the death of Christ. I was a lazy college student and had procrastinated, squandered my time until my paper was due the next day. I went to the college library to find anything I could in order to complete my essay. I made my way into the basement of the library where a lot of the religious encyclopedias were kept. And after a few hours of research, I found myself studying alone, quiet and peaceful. Just the sound of my pencil on my paper. Eventually, I heard the door open from the upstairs, and one of the Jesuit priests came down to check in on me. This was not a strange occurrence, since there were dozens of Jesuits living on campus. Most of them were teachers or retired. This was clearly one of the retired priests. "What are you studying?" he asked. "I'm wrong about the life of Barabbas," I responded. "Ah, the zealot," he mused. "You want this one?" He pulled a large book from a shelf. Barabbas was just like Christ. His name meant Son of God, but his life took a different turn. He helped me finish my essay, gave me lots of tips and pointers, and taught me more than anybody ever taught me. We sat and talked for hours. His name was Father Joshua, and he told me I could use him as a reference for any of the facts that my teacher questioned. I bade him a thankful farewell and left to finalize my essay. The next day I turned in my paper and admitted to my teacher, another Jesuit, that Father Joshua had helped me out. He smiled at me and told me that Father Joshua had been helping students for a long time. He told me how Father Joshua had helped him in his own studies to become a priest, when Father Joshua was still alive. And after his battle with cancer, Father Joshua seemed to have made it his mission in the afterlife to help whoever he could. I went looking for Father Joshua a few times afterwards, but never saw him. I hope he's helping somebody else now, and I hope he knows that he changed my life. I know there's an afterlife, and I know there's a goodness and light there. Grandfather's Farm. My grandfather owns a farm in South Africa. It has multiple incidents over the years. When my grandfather was young, maybe 8 or 9, he was playing outside. And then he was scared by a man that looked like his uncle screaming at him. He initially just thought that it was his uncle, since he was not known as a nice man. But as he arrived home immediately after this encounter, he saw that his uncle had been in the house the entire time and was in the middle of a very long story. There was also no trace of a man having been anywhere near the area when they went looking for whoever had scared my grandfather. Soon after, my grandfather had brought some of the property from his other family members. He and his grandmother decided to build a new farmhouse about 1 kilometer deeper into the property. This was away from the main road. After they moved into the new house, they noticed that nearly every night at around 6 p.m. the gate at the side of their house would sound like it was opening and slamming shut, even though they kept it locked after dark. The dogs would also start howling in unison and would all be staring at something moving along the wall. There'd be nothing there, and the dogs would stop howling as soon as any living person stepped outside. The entire event only lasted about a minute or two, and as soon as it was over, the dogs immediately stopped howling or making noise really in anything for that matter. They would go back to what they were doing before as if nothing had even happened. One of my grandfather's cousins, who might have been a medium, came over and spoke to the entity, which did end the nightly walks for a long time, until that cousin passed away. Now the entity is a lot less predictable, walking any time between 4 p.m. and 1 a.m., sometimes multiple times a night, sometimes not at all. My grandfather's family has a history of supernatural gifts. The cousin mentioned above was not the only one who was sensitive to spirits or able to communicate with them. My grandfather himself is actually a diviner, not only with divining rods, but also just using a bottle of water. He, with 100% accuracy, is able to find groundwater for boreholes, wells, and not only tell you exactly how deep it is, but how much water is present and the exact day it will run dry. And my many times great uncle was Tycerr van Rensburg, who was a renowned seer and was less cryptic and so far more accurate than what Nostradamus was. That is a bold claim, sir, or ma'am. Noise happening around the same time every night. I have a cat. At first, I believed it was him. My room has a bathroom in it, which I always keep the door open because of my cat who needs a litter box, which I leave there for him to use. First night, I don't remember the time. Cat is sleeping on my dresser near the window for fresh air. It's definitely past 1 a.m. as everyone was asleep and I wasn't. In the bathroom, I left a garbage bag, which I used to clean the litter box and would take upstairs the next day as it was too late. So I left it there between the toilet and the bidet. It was already pressed down as far as it could go. But for it to go lower, you would need to press on it, and even if you did, it already touched the floor. I hear the garbage bag move as if being dragged or touched. I think it's the cat, but he's not because he's sleeping there. Usually I'm not the type to freak out. If something paranormal happens, I actually get really excited and happy. But this time I felt really stressed about it. However, at first I thought about something else and I was scared for a different reason. 2 men armed with a gun are kind of going around the zone in a blue car entering people's houses at 3 a.m. My first thought was subconsciously about that. I went to check the bathroom. Yeah, dumb move, I know, but my bathroom is right where my room door is. So regardless of me going inside the bathroom or not, it's like I had to walk in front of the bathroom door to leave my room. Meaning the person would have seen me anyway if it was a person. I go and I check. Empty. For a few minutes, I'm creeped out and keep all the lights on until the time passes. I feel comfortable turning the lights off again, but I did felt as if someone was there in the bathroom for a few minutes before the feeling passed. Next night I'm on the bed, and this time, I know what time it is. It's 3 a.m. and I'm awake, watching videos on my PS and chatting with a friend on WhatsApp. 3:33 approach, and like at 3:25 or 28 I hear the mop stick as if it fell or was touched. But it was still standing in the same position, always coming from the bathroom direction. I go check, nothing. Turn on the lights again and tell about my friend how creeped out I am that my cat once again was sleeping, and well, this time right next to me on the bed. I also forgot to point out that the house is a villa, not a big one. It was actually 2 separated houses with 2 floors. The people who bought it united the first and second floor, turning it into a single house. So there's no one attached to us on either side of the house. It's like separated by a garden with walls around it. I feel again as if there's a person in the bathroom, or in general, and this time checked the whole room and bathroom like yesterday, but didn't look underneath the bed because I was too scared. Thought that if I looked down I would see someone or something. Once again everybody in the house was sleeping. I was the only one awake. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but the other explanation about hearing noises at night is schizophrenia or lack of sleep. I admit I stay up late, but that's because I sleep during the day and stay awake at night. I get enough sleep hours to feel energetic and avoid hallucinations caused by lack of sleep. And while I'm not an expert in psychology, still studying, I'm pretty sure I don't have schizophrenia. As somebody who worked the night shift for years, that will ruin your hormones. Make you pretty sick. And I've been sick for a long time. Not so much anymore, though. Wishing you luck. Ex-wife and I saw the exact same non-existent creepy thing, without suggestion from the other. So, a couple of years ago, my ex-wife and I were in bed. I woke up. It was semi-dark. I freaked out for a second because I saw what appeared to be a softball-sized spider. It looked like a giant daddy longlegs, but with a few hundred legs that were flying all over the place as it ran over my wife. It scared the hell out of me. But when I sat up, it was gone. So I just thought it was lighting or my eyes glitching out on me. I didn't bring it up to her because, well, I just didn't think it was anything to spend time thinking about. A few days later, I woke up to her screaming. I freak out not knowing what's going on. She apologizes. She says that her eyes were playing tricks on her. She saw a bug the size of a hand, like a spider with a tiny body but dozens of legs. It was running all over you really fast. Weird. And I had almost forgotten about it until I woke up in the middle of the night last night. Saw the same thing, but on my dog. Again, sit up, and it's gone. Like I said, I'm not saying it's paranormal, but I want to know how the hell we could have both seen the same thing, doing the same thing without us ever having talked about it before. Spider scarier than ghosts to me. Nasty. My mother and I experienced a very strange thing. Both of us were afraid to sleep alone after that. I was 18 years old and I was alone at home with my mother, since my dad worked abroad. One night I told my mom I'm going to go take a shower. She was sitting in the living room watching the TV. As I'm showering, I hear a loud knock on the door, so I asked, "Yeah?" Thinking my mother wants to fetch something from the bathroom. But no answer came. Then a couple of seconds later came another 4 knocks, this time quieter. I again asked what's up, but nothing. Put a towel on me, unlocked the door, and opened it. There was no one there. Suddenly, my mom comes from the living room and asks, "What's the problem?" I asked her, "Why were you knocking?" She said, "Me? I came here because you were knocking at the door and shouting. Thought that you got stuck inside." I looked at her dead serious in the eye and said that I wasn't knocking. We stood there confused and told each other what we had heard and how we experienced it. We both experienced the same, a very loud and clean knock at first and a quieter one after that. One other thing that was pretty interesting was that the lights in the hall that joins the living room and the bathroom were off, whereas I clearly didn't turn them off because the switch is closer to the living room. I wouldn't be able to see if I were to leave it off on my way to the bathroom. We were both very terrified and decided to sleep together for the night. And that actually stayed that way for a week. Before we went to sleep, we even agreed that sometimes during the night we can hear garbage noises in the hall, like someone is crossing there with socks. To this day I get chills thinking about it, and I'm so happy none of us lives in that house anymore. My UFO experience. Same old farmhouse. This place was outside of a small town. The driveway was a half mile long. When I say old farmhouse, I mean old farmhouse, surrounded by cornfields on 3 sides and woods on the other. House was built in the 1800s. Not sure about the exact year. It was summertime, I think about 11 or 12. My sister's 4 years older than I. We were in her room just watching TV. This is like the 90s, so no drones or anything. 2-story house, bedrooms on the 2nd floor. But we were just watching TV. Crappy 12-inch TV and sitting on our bed eating popcorn. It's like 10 at night, so pitch blackout. And again, we didn't live in the town. We both just kind of freeze as we notice light starting to come into the window. These windows do not face the driveway or anywhere a car would be, so we're both confused and just kind of sitting there like, what the hell? They get brighter and brighter. They get brighter even so, until the whole room is so bright it's kind of hard to see, like trying to stare into the sun bright. I'm not moving or saying anything because in my head, for whatever reason, I thought, if I don't acknowledge it, it's not real. So I just kind of froze, telling myself that this wasn't happening. My sister decides that she wants to have a look. As soon as her foot leaves the bed and hits the floor, pitch black again. Just the light from the TV. But it wasn't like a light turned off, it was like a very fast fade to black. We both jumped out of the bed and looked out the window. Nothing. Looking for any explanation, planes, helicopters, cars driving in the field, but there's just nothing outside. Nothing giving any kind of light. None of that would have explained how bright it was, but we looked for any explanations. Our parents, whose room is on the other side of the house, so windows faced the opposite direction, saw no light whatsoever. So whatever it was right outside my sister's bedroom window. Our only theory to this day is UFO, and we're in our 40s now. The Weasel Story. This one sounds good. So my dad was a good man, a great man. Never did any harm to anyone. Amazing father and good husband to my mom. Now, I won't go into much detail on what happened because I don't want to drag his name through the mud. Rest in peace, Dad. Still love and miss you. But there was an incident in my late teens that resulted in me calling the cops on my dad. This wasn't a simple incident or something stupid. It resulted in him going to jail for a few months. Even when we all asked him to be released and gave him a criminal record, and when he got arrested, it was less than willingly. Very scary incident. Guns pulled on him and everything. He just didn't seem to care. This was something we never expected from him and never saw again. My mom, sister, and I would discuss the event in length while he was in jail, and we all came to realize that we all saw something in the house, and it started a few days before it happened. We all would see what could only be described as a weasel, never directly, always out of the corner of our eyes, running from room to room or up the stairs. We never really could explain it, but our best guess is some sort of demon or something that attached to him somewhere. Like I said, he never did anything like this again, but we would still occasionally see this weasel, and it was only when he was around. We never saw it when he wasn't home. When I moved out, I never saw it, but when I or my sister would visit, even after they moved to a new house, we would occasionally see this weasel. My sister and I haven't seen it since he passed, and I live in his house now. Ghost encounter all of a sudden. Basically, today my girlfriend and I were in bed. For context, she rents a room by USC, and we both for sure felt a presence there. Basically, tonight we were laying in bed in the dark and she was asking me, "Do you think the presence in my place is evil?" And I told her how I would get woken up there, and I would have horrible nightmares there, which I don't really have, only in really dark times in my life, which I am not experiencing. I asked her what was really bothering her. She told me basically she felt like there was a presence here in my room now. Maybe something following her, but why all of a sudden? And I right away started giving heavy goosebumps, brushed it off and dozed off a bit. And before I was gonna fall asleep, I felt like I couldn't breathe and sat the fuck up and told her, like, "Yo, dude, I just felt that pressure in my chest." I left my room to get something because I got creeped out, and it had locked itself. We both didn't lock it. Kinda still brushed it off, but by this point my body won't stop having goosebumps. Basically, it felt like something was in my room. I'm Catholic and she's not, and I'd pretty much got tired of entertaining this, so I went out to grab my holy water. And the door locked itself again. And at this point I was kind of scared because as an adult I haven't experienced this, to be honest. I sprinkled holy water in the entire room and whatever it was kind of laid off. We both felt at ease. Paranormal story, first post. I was 12 years old, almost 13. I recall this perfectly because the movie 666 was about to debut in movie theaters. That night I felt so scared because I actually went to the movies to watch 666 film. I remember my auntie saying that demons would come out that day, take siblings' appearances to trick and haunt people. Nevertheless, I felt so scared that I went to sleep in my parents' room, took my mattress and brought it to theirs. As it was expected, at 3:30 a.m., we heard this acute noise, a glass-like breaking noise. We checked the whole first floor and we found that this literally had been someone, threw a hard bun, like a bread, through the window. 3 to 5 days after, we all left home around 6 p.m. We went to the nearest mall that was 20 minutes away in a car. We went to just kind of spend the day and see stuff. Regular Sunday-like day. When we came back, we noticed that every single door at the first floor was locked up from the inside. This was an old house. We didn't have the keys for each door, so we had to break the knobs of each door. Later that night, I remember I was watching South Park on MTV. Well, this was not a proper show for a 13-year-old kid, so I had to watch it the lowest bright, the lowest sound, and a bed position like if I were sleeping already. I felt someone was looking through the hole in the door after my dad removed the knob with a hammer, so I felt very anxious and desperate this time. It was my mom. She entered the room and grounded me and forced me to turn the TV off. Next I heard she entered their room and everything remained silent. While I was starting to fall asleep, I checked on the hole where the knob was and I saw an eye. Thought it was my mom again, so I started to say out loud, "Come on, Mom, stop kidding." But the gaze remained still. It wouldn't wink. It wouldn't move. And every second I spent watching it kept growing in an incomprehensible fear inside me, till I just lose it and start to yell for my parents. They arrived as soon as they could, checked the rest of the floor. There was nobody nor anything suspicious.